Now about practical part. And in theory and practice should be the same. In practice, of course, they are different. And when we talk about practice, how can you apply theory of UML standard and design into practice? Very important part is about actual tools what you can use. And if you do not want to pay too much about tools, then you do not have infinite choice. And when we talk about tools, there are two different parts of tools which we may use to deal with UML. One is editors and another is modeling tools. Where is difference? UML editors are tools which are mostly graphical editors, which allows you to draw pictures, and then it just happens to be that they have some templates, what are called stencils in Microsoft Visio, or templates that some of these pictures you are drawing may be also related to UML. So these graphical editors tend to be better in their graphical features, but problem for such editors is that they actually do not understand what UML is, they don't care about meaning. And if you start with editors, of course you can use editor like this freehand editor to draw sloppy freehanded UML diagrams. And of course this will be UML, but it's sloppy, it's not nice. And when you need to redesign something, then you need to where is my eraser? You need to erase something and then draw something from scratch again. It's just not good. So usually you need to use object-oriented editors where you draw these diagrams using vector graphics. And by vector graphic I mean that these are not different color of dots on the screen, but they describe shapes using lines and vectors. And if you want to live cheap, some of editors you can use on Linux operating system are called Dia. I think they call it Dia, not Dia, because naming comes from Europe, not from America. And in previous Calligra Suite version, and Calligra is weak competitor to Microsoft Office and LibreOffice. So if LibreOffice is very good competitor to Microsoft Office, at least in my opinion, even if you need to do system integration and automation, then Calligra Suite is weak competitor. It exists as open source software, and in previous versions of this Calligra Suite there was Calligraph as a separated graphical editor, but then they made some strange design choice, maybe because of collection of effort or whatever. They put this separate graphical editor called Calligraph as a part of Calligraph Sheet, and Calligraph Sheet it is actually analog to where's Office. Calligraph Sheet is actually competitor of Spreadsheet. It is Spreadsheet in general. So here is your Spreadsheet, And for some strange design decision, I think to save time on working effort, they decided that here instead of empty normal Canva, you have a spreadsheet behind it. But then you still can use it. For example, here is BPMN stencils for business process modeling notation, and it is analog to activity diagram. Difference is that it is actually more expressive than activity diagram itself. And then, of course, when you print it out, this spreadsheet is not visible. For example, you look at here, you see only this, but this is quite confusing, at least to me, so that I still see this spreadsheet behind my normal editor. So I do not consider this. If you are not big believer in Calligra Office Suite, I cannot recommend this editor too much anymore. But good thing is that it has stencils for this BPMN or business process modeling notation. But it's an editor, it doesn't care about meaning. So you can draw nonsense here and it will still be okay. Other editor, and it is again graphical editor, not modeling tool, is Dia. And it's somewhere, I think, under graphics. And Dia is weak competitor to Microsoft Visio, which was just Visio before Microsoft bought it. And you can use stencil for UML, and good thing about this particular editor is that it still allows you to draw nonsense, like class extends class itself. So this is nonsense, because class extensions, even if you allow multiple inheritance, always should be directed acyclic graphs. So even though you have branches and merges, it always should flow from one place to another, but it cannot go infinite loop. So it allows you to draw nonsense. But if you talk about, for example, aggregation, this is not nonsense, because when we had our Martian in stomach of other Martian, so which is A and which is B, I don't know. This is how it will look like, that if we create instance of like Martian, there may be some instance of Martian which has Martians inside stomach. So this is not nonsense. You just need to know what meaning means. That there is no class inside class, but there is object out of this class. There is the same type of object inside this other class. And you can also say that it is navigable. Not in this end. There is and it has stencil here to create attributes, like with all these visibility, access modifiers, only thing is that it still thinks that we are using UML 1.0. It's not joining properly. For example, here it talks about stereotype. With its interface of it probably because I don't need to add these ones if it's added automatically. So it is old school editor, so it doesn't know that stereotype should be actually called profiles with little bit different meaning for that. And then you can draw all these possible UML diagrams in one single place. For example, you still can put class inside package. That is not nonsense. No, it doesn't go bigger. But you can still also write sequence diagram in the same diagram. You can draw object diagram in the same diagram. So it doesn't care about precise meaning. So it is graphical editor, not bad graphical editor, but still only graphical editor. So you can use it for documentation purposes. You can use it to know precisely, for example, how looks private, protected and public properties and classes. But otherwise it's just for documentation purposes. And then there are a set of tools which are modeling tools which care about meaning, and probably still best tool, maybe not, but when I was active in this area, best tool as a modeling tool which cared about meaning was IBM Rational Architect. And if you heard something about Rational, you know it was separate company. Long time ago was famous with Rational Unified Process, was famous with contribution to object-oriented approach in systems design, and was famous with its Rational Systems Architect modeling tool. And after some time IBM bought it because they saw that it could be great income for them for this tool, because at that time I was using this product. It costed approximately $20,000 in year for one single user license. Because I was student, we got large discount. This 20,000 was like just $200 per license, but still quite costly. But now, last time I checked about this product, it looks to me that IBM is not interested about this tool anymore. And if I search, for example, and look history on this, I see that there is another tool by other company, and that means that future for this tool currently is quite cloudy. I don't know how it will evolve, and that means that probably after some time some best tool in this area will be called differently and will be provided by different company. So that's how this comes and goes away. Then if you are not using this particular tool, then I don't know. There are many tools based on Eclipse, because Eclipse is just one very large set of Lego bricks, and everybody who is not lazy can add another Lego brick into this tool set. And one of these tools on top of Eclipse was called Amondo. But this tool is also not very actively developed, and I don't know how well it works today, etc. And then there are different kind of other tools. For example, iAdd and UMLlet, which are written in Java, but these are standalone tools. And these are pretty good if you don't need integrated development environment. But their features are not so great as for this former IBM Rational systems architect or system architect. And then, particularly for Eclipse or IntelliJ IDEA, there are dozens of other plugins. For example, you open Eclipse Marketplace. Where is Eclipse Marketplace? Here. And you search for UML. And you will see dozens or maybe hundreds of entries here. So UMLlet, what I mentioned as an Eclipse plugin, UML Designer, quite a lot of C73 matches. But I don't know much about these other things, and if 73 is too much to you, my recommendation is, when you look for state of art, what you can get for free and what you can get for cheap, is filter out everything which supports reverse engineering. Because my practice has shown that reverse engineering is much more complicated than forward engineering, and these tools, who at least claim that they also allow us to create diagrams back from actual code, are much less. So just UML was 73, UML reverse 90. Okay, you can look it by yourself. You install them, test it out, read documentation. If your Eclipse crashes, remember that to reset your Eclipse completely, you go to exercise 2. And here are all your customizations for project, for workspace and for Eclipse. Delete these if it crashes. It may happen because of different dependencies and different environment. These, of course, who are popular probably will not crash. They are better tested, better developed. These which are not so popular maybe will not work so well. And you may test it out. But because there are so many and I am not so active in this area anymore, I have not tested them. As a proof of concept, I will show you one tool which is probably not the greatest tool, but which I know how to use. And this tool is also Eclipse plugin. and it is called GreenUML. When I was studying for master's degree and doctor's degree, we were developing another tool called Mola Editor, which is also graphical editor, but meaning for this particular tool was to describe data transformations from one source to another target for systems integration, for data migration, etc., etc. And this editor also used graphical language for pattern matching, because when you need to do, for example, systems integration and data transformation, in general, what you need to do is to search for patterns. Is there some object related to that object? If there is, then add this attribute to that, delete this attribute and create another attribute. So that's what happens when you migrate data. And this editor was using graphical programming language, and this editor itself was written in this graphical programming language. So we again use this bootstrap approach to describe this tool itself, and biggest test bed and test area for this editor was to develop and describe this tool itself. So everything this tool did was actually described in this graphical notation. So I was not main contributor there, I was just another developer here, because my main aspect of interest was about this precise meaning of business processes, etc. But we participate in development of this tool, and we used. Problem for this tool is it is not developed anymore, and it works only for Microsoft Windows, because libraries which it use are dynamically loaded libraries for Microsoft Windows. So when I switch it to Linux, I could use it, run it only in Windows virtual machine. So again, it's not the greatest graphical editor, but when you draw UML diagrams, class diagrams particularly for it, it cared about meaning, so it checked is syntax correct for your drawings, and do you draw them properly. So that's about this. And this GreenUML, what I still can use, was at that time somehow competing a little bit in this area with University of Latvia, where I was studying. But as this happens with many of research projects, when research money for this grant disappeared, this became abandoned, but it was developed as open source software, in difference with this Mola modeling tool, which was closed source application. So we used it, I used it, and to make it work for modern Eclipses, I have my own fork here on this tool, where there are some updates. If you are interested, for example, you can look on commits what has done here. So some of Java bootcampers, previous bootcampers, also contributed a little bit here to make it run. So, and to prove idea about reverse and forward engineering is following: that anytime you do your documentation as post factum of your actual project, sooner or later your documentation will be out of sync with reality, because synchronization of documents with your actual project takes time, you never have enough time, and sooner or later your documentation is not relevant to the project. But with forward reverse engineering tools, you can always create some part of a documentation, in this case only UML diagrams, class diagrams. There are many UML, but for example class diagrams you can always regenerate and create up-to-date diagrams for your system design. And because GitHub do not allow you to use it as a storage for binary files, and because I have not bothered to register this plugin in Eclipse Marketplace, you have to install it in old school approach. You go to your Eclipse, help, install new software, and you say add another remote repository. And then, I don't remember, I think we may be optimists and try to install everything. So, while it is thinking here, what is might also be useful for you to know, if these tools are using Eclipse as a foundation for these plugins, maybe customized Eclipse, there are two different sets of libraries and frameworks which you usually end up using. Graphical editor framework to support features of graphical editing. So that means you can draw pictures inside your canvas using, of course, the scalable vector graphic or object-oriented approach, not bitmap approach. And another is Eclipse modeling framework, and this framework is used to manage classes and metaclasses, and to use these metaclasses to create instance of your runtime objects. And it doesn't have any visualization, but what it allows you to do is that if you have declared some kind of class, and then you can create instance out of it, like what would be in Java new, and construct it. And if it was not an actual class but meta class, then you can create instance again out of it to create actual object or runtime object for your structured data, your objects in jargon, but in proper meanings that would be instances. And any tool I have investigated in more details, which use Eclipse as a basis for these tools, use both of these frameworks, graphical editor framework for visualization and EMF for actual data management. And if we have some kind of standard Eclipse, important part here is that we contact all update sites during install to find required software. For example, if I say directly install GreenUML plugin for me, what actually is happening is that it depends also on these two libraries and frameworks, GEF and EMF. And what I'm actually doing, what is going very slowly here, is that I'm not directly installing this GreenUML plugin yet, but it is searching and trying to install required dependencies, similarly as Maven, to satisfy these dependencies and install this plugin. And sometimes, depending on settings on your network, it may fail either temporarily or finally or whatever. Then one of basic parts what you can do is to not use Java Eclipse for Java developers, but you use different flavor of Eclipse as your starting point. Which is called Eclipse Modeling Tools. So for this flavor of Eclipse, it is even bigger, at least last time I checked. Not so big, 442 only, and for Java and Enterprise developers, it is 500 megabytes. So then you can start to check these different kind of UML plugins which you could search for Eclipse Marketplace, not for this Eclipse views for Java Enterprise and web developers, but you use this particular Eclipse to test out these additional plugins. Of course, the quality of these plugins depends how well these dependencies are required, and if these dependencies are not well required, you may install plugin itself, but it still will not work because this plugin do not describe its actual dependencies very well. And then you do try it out with standard Eclipse, nothing works for you. And while we are waiting here, I think I will need to interrupt it, but I will allow to think for it for some more time. Let's look on other tools. And other tools, I think there is not much to look on NetBeans, but IntelliJ IDEA also supports plugins and you can download and install them. And I have seen that in previous classes some of students have used some of these additional plugins for IntelliJ IDEA. So where are plugins? Maybe tools, I don't remember. Plugin development, plugins. Install, but not from disk. Maybe it's here. Settings plugins. And then you search for UML. And similarly to Eclipse, you have quite a lot of different plugins. But if you want also forward reverse engineering, then you have only 2 results. And then you can investigate first their documentation. Then something more. Try to install it and try to run. So here I see package diagram together with class diagram. What I see here, no any picture at all. Description of graphical editor without any picture at all doesn't look very good. So you can also try this out. And then you can share your experience with the class and teacher. And for NetBeans, I don't know. NetBeans is much simpler. I will not surprise that you will not get anything very elaborated for NetBeans. Plugins. Available. Plant UML. Is this the same plant UML as for Eclipse? Ah, yeah, it's the same plant UML, only it is also customized for NetBeans. So this should be, you can try to install it. And if it will be break, then you will need to learn by yourself and will tell me how to reset settings for NetBeans. Of course, what we can do here is a very simple thing. You can search everything what is related to NetBeans. Like these folders, that's where I have extracted it. .NetBeans folder, .cache folder for caching something. So it will work. Then this plugin works like a markup diagram, which is then generated to the file. And how do I render it? So this works like a text programming language or text language. You write some plain text with specific markups and it generates drawing for you, which then you can, for example, copy to clipboard and put, etc. It doesn't look very bad, but I don't know how well it works with forward reverse engineering. I don't know syntax here well, so I need to learn documentation for it how to put, or I can try to first create class. And then do this reverse engineering. For example, here, what we need to do, int age and getter setters. source. So that would be reverse engineering. I have created some class and then, so nothing much to lose here. Let's do so, I think. Okay, let's just try it out. And now I at least, but it included all the classes, it's too much. Class, there are attributes. Okay, so this is just one thing you may investigate. What is happening with this Eclipse here? Still doesn't work. We need to start from now. So if this doesn't work properly for you, you need to double check some other things. What kind of remote repositories are enabled for Eclipse by default. What I know, you can go to it through install new blah blah blah, but then manage to these repositories, and here I have enabled GMF. I will enable also GMF runtime. I will also enable that as well. Nothing more to. And now let's try to. All items are installed. So if it works for you, then how should it look like? It should look like following: that here in this package you should be able to create new GreenUML class and other diagrams. New other GreenUML class diagram. Let's say animals. And then, where is our instructions? We can do forward engineering. That means from plan to actual code, like we need to create animals, but we have created already this class, so here we will do reverse engineering. Right click and GreenUML, add to last used class diagram. So this is done. But then we can create new class. What should be name? Mammal. Which extends animal, I think in this direction. And here I'm lazy to do many clicks for forward engineering. For example, you can say add field here, add method, write it, too many clicks. But because this particular tool is very good for forward and reverse engineering, I can do following. I don't like these Java comments created without much of meaning. I don't know about this default constructor. What I know is that we need boolean is domestic field created. Private. And we need to generate getters and setters for it, which are public. Only problem is that here generator says set domestic and is domestic, but we need to have it in standard way, get and set in following way. And when I look on my diagram, it is updated automatically. Then we need to create another class dog, which extends mammal. And here, of course, I can say mom, no, to extend. But I can mix both worlds together, write somewhere text, generate drawing, do something in drawing, update generated source code or text in any possible way. So we need private field string name. And we also need public getters and setters for it. And then we need, I skipped bird. Which extends animal. Don't like this meaningless Java comments and meaningless constructor. And again, here our generator generates a little bit different. Everything here may be customized in Eclipse, but I'm too lazy to customize because I don't do it too frequently. And we need standard naming convention get and set for getters and setters. And that updated our drawing as well, and then we need class hawk. Which extends bird, which has some added complexity. Which is private string color. And public getters and setters for it. And now this part is almost done. My class diagram looks quite ugly because it's not properly layouted. Such ugly diagram is something like ugly code with no indentation, no proper alignment. This is somewhere in a completely different place, etc. So similarly, as you can write bad code, you can write bad drawings in UML. But fortunately for us, this particular plugin allows to auto layout all these classes in two different ways. Where it is set. in empty place, auto arrange, right click auto arrange, auto arrange in such way, then it puts everything in pseudo circle in such way that total amount of these lines, total length of lines, is as short as possible. So if you have many associations in the classes as well, then the initial setting to put them in circle, with some cohesion, more related classes together, less related classes far away, it may be good as an initial condition. But another thing is you can arrange with hierarchy algorithm, which creates very nice hierarchical structure for you. And in this case it works very well. We may decrease white spaces here, because too many white spaces is the same as too many white spaces in your code. For example, when I needed to work with publications, one of how can I deselect? Yeah, one of problem was that you always have limited amount of space for your publication, so you need to think carefully how to make your drawings as compact as possible. And then for this part of drawing we need to create PNG file out of it. In this particular tool that is save as, and PNG, and place should be my workspace, my project, src, mine, java, gtm, activity 7, animals.png. And then again, all these tests which are in plural are not put in tests folder as it should be required according to the Maven standards. But fortunately to us, Eclipse and IntelliJ IDEA do not care so much about this rigid standard NetBeans care. NetBeans do not allow to run your JUnit tests outside of test folder. So we run the JUnit test and something should be passing for us. So classes are created, but what is not created is comparison failure. That's interesting. All not private. So here when I wrote it, what is missing? And here some of methods are failing because UML class diagram do not care about the body of the methods, but we care and our JUnit tests care. Here we see reason why some fields should be private with getters and setters, because particularly here for animal, our getter should be in a such way that not any integer should be put into this age. For example, here, if we check it, we see that animal age cannot be set to negative value. So as far as I can tell here, nothing is written here besides implement methods. Which allow to set only non-negative number. Here it is. So we see reason behind private properties and public setters. So for animal here, we need to check for set age, if age, and I don't know about else. Set to 0, set to something else, who knows, but we can deduct it or investigate it by seeing how it's called and what happens. So well, we print out every time set age is called. And here more details about this error message. So it says expected 0, but was minus 17. Okay, so that is negative and you cannot set negative value. So we check if this age is larger than 0, we set it. We don't know about other things. But if we test it, let's close this one. So we see that set age is called several times. Set age 3, set age minus 11, set age 2, set age minus 11, set age blah blah blah. So 3 minus 11. And what we see here, animal age cannot be negative value, expected 0, but was 3. And of course 3 is larger than 0, so it's positive. And where it comes from, it is not negative. But here you need to think outside one particular iteration. You need to remember about some previous stages of the test. So we got 3, but it expected 0. And if we look here on these previous executions, we see that probably it set 3 successfully, and then it set minus 11, which is negative number. And from this we can understand that looks like that in else case we need to say that age is just 0, because was expected 0 but was 3. And if we run it, we see that there is no problem with testing age anymore. By the way, I should update my diagram here, because I updated this to private. So save as. PNG file. So, red private. Of course, this is updated. Green UML diagram is updated automatically, but if I export it in just to PNG file, then I don't have this. I don't need the second one. And this is vintage red. So now something is working, and again about name, something needs to be implemented differently for name. So for set name, which allows to set only name with letters starting with capital letter. And where we introduced name, in which class? Dog. That's where is dog? Here. So first, let's debug it. And by the way, for animal, I don't need this debugging code anymore. Set name 16. So what you need to do here, one of things would be to use character class and check, for example, string like name get chars and then after that, and you can implement it, but I don't like this because proper way to implement such things is to use a thing called regular expressions. And regular expressions are set of languages implemented in many tools where you can search for regularities. And what kind of regularities you can search? Different things. For example, one of regular language could be like this. And if you study theory of computers, sooner or later you will learn something about finite state machines, push down and different kind of automata and push down automata and regular language. For example, regular language is go back to this. Why it doesn't go back? For example, this is a regular language. I see some regularities. It consists of two different letters, A and B, and I see that there may be one or many A letters in a row, then one or many B letters in a row, and in state machine diagrams that would be something like this: produce A, produce B state, maybe produce it again, or maybe produce B, maybe produce it again, maybe produce B. We may add some constraint, but I don't know. For example, here, is this infinite amount or just 10 as more or less or whatever. And for such languages you can use pattern matching to search for these regularities. For example, one or many B's or one or many E's. And when you implement such state machine diagram, you can go back to this Turing machine which has this read-write head and can move in any arbitrary direction to read and write, let's say, character here. But there is subset of these Turing machines where you have infinite tape only in one direction, and your head may just go in this direction more, and then it can go only back until it's empty. So this is called push-down automation, how it's in singular, automation. Or you can also talk about stack. So you put here and you take it out here. So you can add more, but then you get out, you get less. And with such limits, this is regular language. You might describe many things, but it's not Turing complete. You cannot implement every possible thing with such limitations. So it's not Turing complete. This means with regular language you cannot describe any possible algorithm, but you can describe any algorithm where you have restrictions that this reading write head might go only from start position deeper, and then back, and maybe deeper again, back. But limits are not arbitrary and there's no jump. In this you can also have condition jump, but here you can go deeper by one, less, and deeper. So that what is regular languages in theory. And almost any programming language implements some kind of subset of these regular languages, mostly to search for patterns in text. Actually, similarly, when we worked with this graphical Mola tool, you can similarly search for regularities and implement it with this push-down automation for pattern matching in any relation between objects. But here, only relation between objects will be search for patterns for strings. And this definitely should be one of tools you should know how to use, and that's why what we will be using here. So if we have to allow only names containing letters and starting with capital letter, we can do something like this. If name matches, let's say A to Z, as a capital, A to Z. So these are ranges from letter A to letter Z, from letter A to letter Z, and I think here we can just say stars. I think one single letter also could be allowed. If it matches this pattern, then else to do, I don't know. We will find it out. Docs name cannot contain digits, expected empty, but was null. So that means that otherwise this should be this name should be empty string. And we may think that we are done. Problem is following, that only Americans may think that this is done, because if we will do our manual test, not name directly, but set name. I think it's very proper name. Starts as capital letter, everything is lowercase. And what we see here is empty name instead. Why? Because these ranges works properly only for Latin letters, and therefore, if it's not required, but if we want to be future proof and do implement it correctly also for non-Latin but still proper characters, is we need to do something like this. Uppercase character and then but it's still use ASCII only. No, that's wrong. I think this one. First uppercase and lowercase. And such may be 0 or many. And if we rerun JUnit test, it still works. And we see here set name only Latin letters, and therefore we were happy that it passed using these ranges. And for example, if we will set some Chinese character or Arabic character, it still will not match, because for Chinese and Arabic is considered everything is lowercase, and for Chinese I do not know which is either considered everything is uppercase or everything lowercase. So for these writing systems there is no different sets of characters for uppercase and lowercase. So that means if there is such requirement that it should start with uppercase and continue with lowercase, you cannot give your dog name in Arabic, and I think also not in Chinese as well, but you may test it out by yourself. And so this would be more proper approach for regular expressions for non-Latin characters as well. And with that, I think I told you everything I think I need to tell you about this particular exercise. Do you have any questions or comments?